Welcome to today's explainer, Silicon to Society. It's incredibly easy to just get completely lost in the daily noise of tech updates, but if we step back for a second and look at literally just a single day of news, specifically July 21st, 2026, this absolutely crystal clear narrative emerges. We're watching AI rapidly transition from, well, kind of just a software novelty into this unstoppable force that's actively rewiring our physical infrastructure, rewriting fundamental logic, and completely reshaping our digital economy. So today we're going to trace that exact journey right through the data. Let's dive in.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First up, the global AI hardware race. Then, breaking logic and security boundaries. After that, we'll hit the economic web traffic shockwave. And finally, how governments are responding.
All right, Section 1, the global AI hardware race.
So before AI can write a single line of code or generate a stunning image, it is a physical beast. We're talking massive real-world infrastructure here. Iron, copper, silicon, and just monumental amounts of electricity. Check out this staggering number, 1 gigawatt. Chinese AI developer Z.AI just officially completed construction on a landmark data center cluster operating at this massive capacity. To put that into perspective for you, that is roughly the power output of a medium-sized nuclear reactor. It's basically enough juice to power, well, actually an entire mid-sized city, but dedicated entirely to computing. But what's truly remarkable here isn't just the sheer scale. It's that this entire facility is housed exclusively with Chinese-manufactured processors.
And honestly, that sparks a fascinating, incredibly high-stakes global push and pull. On one side of the chessboard, we have ongoing Western supply chain restrictions targeting advanced hardware. In direct response to that, Beijing is actively consulting with its leading domestic AI companies, and they're weighing the implementation of their own tightened export controls on advanced AI architectures and specialized chip IP. So the goal here is pretty clear. Both sides are actively maneuvering to manage the global distribution of these technologies and, preserve their domestic computing advantages. It's a massive physical and regulatory race playing out in real time.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the race is forcing players to tackle hardware from entirely new angles. Enter Cusp AI. They're a materials science startup that just secured fresh capital backing from Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and the UK government. Instead of just trying to build larger factories, they're using generative models to predict and design entirely novel molecular compounds. Think about that. They are literally using AI to invent the materials needed for the next generation of semiconductor fabrication. We've reached this totally sci-fi point where AI is designing the very hardware that's going to run the next generation of AI. Pretty wild, right?
Let's move on and see how this builds in Section 2, breaking logic and security boundaries.
So we're moving now from the sheer brawn of physical chips to the unprecedented intellectual capabilities they unlock. Take the Jacobian conjecture. Now, if you've ever struggled with high school algebra, imagine a mathematical problem involving polynomials that has acted as an absolute brick wall in the math world for 87 years. For literally decades, brilliant human minds have tried to prove it, and for decades, it has totally eluded resolution. It was historically impenetrable. Well, until now.
Now, what's really interesting about this is mathematician Levent Alpagage recently announced the resolution of this long-standing conjecture, and the breakthrough? He attributed it to novel mathematical reasoning generated with the aid of Anthropic's Fable 5 model. Just let that sink in for a moment. The AI didn't just act as some fast calculator crunching numbers. It generated novel reasoning. It stepped right into the realm of high-level abstract logic and successfully navigated a complex problem that humanity just couldn't crack on its own for nearly a century.
But hey, this superhuman reasoning isn't just confined to academic math. It actually has immediate, supercritical real-world applications. Cybersecurity firm Horizon 3 AI has officially partnered with Anthropic's Project Glasswing. They're taking these incredibly advanced AI models and integrating them directly into the defense systems of industrial control networks. So basically, the very same logic engines that are out there cracking 87-year-old math equations are actively analyzing and predicting operational threats in real time. They're securing the power grids, water treatment facilities, and critical physical systems that our society relies on every single day.
Zooming out from that, we hit Section 3, the economic web traffic shockwave.
We've looked at the hardware and the complex math, but what about the sweeping, everyday impact on the internet economy? Well, get ready for this staggering metric, -40%. According to newly published analytical data from Cloudflare, there's been a historic, nearly 40% decline in organic human web traffic to commercial websites across major industries. And that's over just the past year. Think about the massive economic gravity of that drop. Almost half of the traditional human flow across the commercial internet has simply vanished.
So the crucial point here is understanding the cause. Analysts are attributing this historic drop directly to the massive proliferation of generative AI search engines and zero-click answer boxes. You know the drill. Users just aren't typing in a query, scrolling through a bunch of links, and clicking into a business's website anymore. I mean, after all, why read a lengthy blog post when an AI can simply synthesize the entire web and hand you the exact answer right there on the search page? It's incredibly efficient for us as users, for sure, but it is causing an absolute shockwave for the commercial websites that totally rely on that inbound traffic to survive. The fundamental architecture of web commerce is literally shifting beneath our feet.
Which brings us to our final layer, Section 4, how governments are responding.
When you have shifting power dynamics in hardware, unprecedented superhuman reasoning, and massive economic shockwaves, well, national governments really have no choice but to step in. This timeline from South Korea is a perfect example of what that frantic response looks like. On July 21, 2026, their historic AI Basic Act officially took effect, establishing strict safety and transparency standards across sensitive sectors. But look closely at the second half of that timeline. By the end of 2026, South Korea isn't just regulating AI, they're actually launching a free, state-backed national AI chatbot platform. They're recognizing that access to top-tier AI is now a fundamental requirement for a modern society, so they're democratizing it for their citizens and essentially treating this technology as a brand new public utility.
We've seen AI design its own next-generation silicon. We've seen it crack 87-year-old mathematical conjectures. We've seen it consume 40% of commercial web traffic and basically force entire governments to rewrite their digital laws. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought based on the journey we just took today. As this technology accelerates at a pace we can barely even measure, are we still the architects of this new era, or are we simply becoming the audience? Definitely think about that as you watch the news tomorrow. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep learning.